Yeah, we can start now. Yeah, okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We start our session today. This is panel 6 on geopolitics and regional tensions. So I'm Rifqi Muna. I will be chairing the sessions until finished. For these sessions, we have 4 papers. Yeah, we have 4 papers to discuss. The first, according to the schedule, we have the first titles as the dynamics of balance of power in Indo-Pacific. It is by Pertiwi, Sari, and Sulistiani. The second paper titles the implications of Russia-Ukraine war toward Muslim world through the organizations of Islamic cooperation or OIC in the middle of a COVID pandemic era. And the third paper is analysis of mainstream media perspective on European countries' policies in receiving Syrian and Ukrainian refugees. And the fourth paper will be the impact of the imperially-inspired post 9/11 US foreign policy on the rise of the Islamic State and Iraq. Well, the 4 papers are very interesting topics to discuss. And I think the geopolitics is always become the hot issues for us to follow and to discuss. And I hope that we'll have good presentations as well as good discussions as well later on. So thank you. I would like to start, by first of all, I would like to give opportunity to the speakers of the title 1. I don't know whether the speaker is already in here or not, which is what the title is the dynamic of balance of power in Indo-Pacific. Please identify yourself if you are already logged in. Hello, anyone here for the title 1? If you are not here, I would like to yeah, the title 1 for the dynamic of balance of power in Indo-Pacific. Are you giving the paper for dynamic of balance of power in Indo-Pacific? Okay. Seems that is there any Pertiwi, Sari, and Yulistiani? It's not here? Not here yet. Okay. Well, the first paper presenter is not yet here. And I would like to ask the speaker for the titles of the implications of Russia-Ukraine war toward OIC in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic era. Please, the speakers, is it Mohammad Ibrahim Soejoeti or Mohammad Aqshadigrama will you speak for this section?
Yes, sir, we hear.
Okay, please. The time is yours, and please, at the time you present your paper between 5 to 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, please. The time is yours. The screen is yours. Hello, are you ready for presentation?
Yes, Ibra, Can you share the PowerPoint? Ibra. Ibra, can you share the PowerPoint?
Okay, so well, if so, you can just say or just speak what is your paper is all about while waiting your friend Mr. Ibra to share the paper the PowerPoint. And please identify yourself.
May I audible, please? Sorry.
Please, Pak
The
Mohammad,
PowerPoint, Ibra.
to start your paper presentations, or you would like to speak for the group, you know. We are waiting.
Okay, please wait. Sorry, I'm still search my file. Still opening the file.
Yeah, better actually to prepare the file before the presentations because we have to manage the time. So yeah, okay, it's coming.
Okay. Thank you, the moderator and the participant. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mohammad Ibrahim, and my co-author is Muhammad Aqshadigrama. Today we would like to present about our paper. The title is The Implication of Russia-Ukraine War Toward Muslim World Through the Organization of Islamic Operations in the Middle COVID-19 Pandemic Era. Next. As a country are facing countermeasure from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic that has been going on in the different parts of the world for about 2 years since the end of 2019, the escalation of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is escalating rapidly. The conflict has affected the world situation and was the situation after the arrival of the pandemic outbreak. As of June 2022, Russia forces already control more than 2/3 of the territory of Severodonetsk, the main city in eastern Ukraine. The conflict between the two countries is not a relative recent conflict on the discourses of international security issues, but has been started since the Middle Ages. Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus when the third country became a superpower. The occurrence of the crisis in Ukraine began when there were protests in the capital Kiev. President Viktor Yanukovych of Ukraine refused to deal with the economy with the EU existed in November 2013. Then in 2014, there were revolutions against Russia's supremacy. This can happen because Russian military force captured the Crimean region, Ukraine. Crimean citizens also fought to join the Russian Federation in the referendum. The revolution also opened up Ukraine's interest to join the European Union and NATO. Ukraine wants to set up a NATO base next to Russia border, triggers Putin anger. This is also supported by the increasingly close diplomatic relations of a number of Eastern European countries with NATO. The next is in the attack on February 24, 2022. Based on UN data, the war between Russia and Ukraine has inflicted many victims. It caused the impact of the financial and economic crisis between the two countries, and of course, the impact on the economic of other countries. As a result of the many potential adverse impact that can occur, of course, it has contributed to the great attention of the world community to the war between these two countries. Many countries support that the war between Russia and Ukraine can be ended and make a resolution of the ongoing conflict. It takes many parties who can speak out to push the Russian and Ukrainian wars to stop, not just the General Cooperation Forum in the United Nations. It is necessary that there are serious discussion in forums such as G7 and G20, Regional Cooperation Forum, to the forum that have similar interests. One of the important forum is necessary to help calm the conflict between Russia and Ukraine was the OIC. The role of OIC as an international organization that accommodates Muslim countries interesting to study because it can see now how the strength of the work religious Muslim organization in responding to the ongoing global phenomenon and building stability to be voiced in international forum with the aim of fighting for justice and peace for all mankind. Based on the problems that have been described, the author has the attempt to be carried out a deeper study, describe and analyze the extent to which the war between Russia and Ukraine has implications for other countries, especially the Muslim world. This research also aimed to find out how the response of the Organization of Islamic Operations in looking at the implication of the war that occurred between the two countries on the Muslim world. In addition, this research is interesting to study because the war that occurred was still in the crisis period of handling the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, this study will outline whether the OIC has an influence on the human security problem of Muslim countries affected by the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine in the midst of an outbreak that infected and infected many lives in almost all corners of the world. Okay, the next is methods. This paper uses qualitative methods with a neoliberal approach and the concept of human security to answer these questions. In addition, this paper used a descriptive method in explaining phenomena that occur with this type of data based on the secondary sources obtained from several journals, books, previous research, as well as online articles and news, and other credible data, with those that have discussion relevant to the research title, and those that support the discussion of research problems. The data also collected relates to the history of the Russian and Ukrainian wars, the implication of the wars on the Islamic world, and the role of the OIC to find out what the implication of the Russia-Ukraine war are through the OIC in the time of COVID-19 pandemic era. Also, the theories and concept, we use the neoliberalism theory and human security concept. With the neoliberalism in the study, the author used the theory of neoliberalism to analyze the role of the OIC as the international organizations is responding to conflict between Russia and Ukraine during the COVID-19 pandemic era. And also the concept of human security can be explained as the response to humanitarian problems that plague the world today, such as food problem, illegal arms trafficking, terrorism, trafficking children and women, refugees due to conflict, and cycle violence, as well as violation of human rights, victim of war, and so on. Because we use this theory, because of the Russia-Ukraine war could be announced with human security concept. The next is discussion will be presented of Aqsa. Aqsa, please.
Okay, so we will discuss about the topic. Thank you, Ibra. The war in Ukraine after the Russian invasion can be said to be still in its early stage. While it is too early to gauge the war felt impact on crisis in the Muslim world, particularly on the Middle East and North Africa regions, it is clear that it is causing multidimensional impact. Now, after its invasion of Ukraine, Moscow is trying to take advantage of any strategic advantage it has made in the Middle East from various interventions and requests for diplomatic assistance from its beneficiaries. In the diplomatic field, Middle Eastern countries that have engaged with Russia, including Arab and American security partners, have delayed joining the Western-led condemnations of Russia aggressions and refused to join efforts to isolate Russia economically. Next, Ibra. The Ukraine-Russia conflict stretches far beyond the borders of the country because it is affect the economy of individuals, especially in the Middle East and Africa. As the price of staple food soars due to the Ukraine-Russia conflict, the countries of the Middle East and North Africa in particular may struggle to secure food. The Ukraine-Russia crisis has had a serious impact on the energy sector and the food sector and will have the potential to cause many disturbances. The current crisis is expected to exacerbate problems that already exist in the OIC countries. And based on these discussions, it is very clear that right now that the war between Russia and Ukraine certainly has a great impact on OIC member states. If we use the perspective of neoliberalism, that the OIC as an international organizations that accommodates these various countries has a responsibility to be a mediator, so that the impact caused by the war can no longer affect its member states. Next, Brad. But before we move to the deeper explanations about these issues, first of all, I would like to give you a second perspective about the OIC itself. As we know that OIC was established as the response to the burning of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. The objective and principle of the form of the OIC, as stated in the Article 2 of the OIC Charter, one of the OIC's objective is to strive and minimize acts of discrimination and eliminate colonialization in all forms. Thus, that's the first point. Thus, the purpose of OIC movement are not far from the supporting international peace and security, besides to improving the coordinations of Islamic cooperations and solidarity among member states, protecting Islamic holy place, and assisting in the struggle for the establishment of an independent and sovereign Palestinian state. Means that besides relying cooperation between OIC and member state, the big visions to be realized in this organization is to want the eliminations of all form colonialization, which causes human rights violations in territories or colonized countries occupied by other countries. This is manifestation that the OIC actually support the international peace and security. The second point is, as we know that OIC was the second largest organization in the world with the Islamic base after the UN, with the membership of 57 countries spread across the continents, and then thus ideally we know that OIC have a great power capital to determine their positions, to do diplomatic actions, and so on, in order to achieve their purpose. We will see is the OIC can use this their political power to reduce this conflict or not. Next, Ibrahim. Okay, the main
5 minutes left. Yeah.
Okay, the main role of the as we know that international organization is dealing with conflict as an initiator, facilitator, and mediator. Although conflict did not occur in the Islam communities, but the invention of Russia to Ukraine were unacceptable because it has many impact toward the world. In this OIC, we can see the Russian and Ukraine conflict the OIC did not appear to play the role of initiator. This was seen when the OIC knew when the Russian invasion to Ukraine, but the organization did not immediately initiate to urge its member state to immediately ask the Russian government to prevent violence or stop the invasions. Whether it is Indonesian or other important member from the OIC, there's no plan or call us to conduct the emergency sessions towards this issue. And then the second one is in aspect as the role of the facilitator. The OIC does not provide any humanitarian assistance even towards the Muslim community who got impact in both of the country. And then the third one, from the side of the OIC as the mediators, there has been no sending of letters or either to the Russian government or the Ukraine to resolve this conflict. So by these three aspects, it is understandable enough that the OIC as an international organization has not been optimal in carrying out its role as an initiator, facilitator, and mediator in responding to the conflict that occurred between Russia and Ukraine. Next, Brad. In this case, that we understand that OIC appears to be in abstention positions because, as we know, because this also happened because Russia position as a part of the OIC as a reviewer or observer since 2005 could provide the influence of the OIC positions on the abstentions. And also this is also have impact about the number of Muslim in Russia, that the relationship between OIC and Russia is also make inseparable. Muslim in Russia reach about 14 until 20 million inhabitants. That number is similar with 10 until 15% or of about 146 million inhabitants of the total populations of Russia in 2021. However, this is comparing to the Ukraine. However, this is inversely proportional to the composition of the Muslim community in the Ukraine, which only reach about 100,000 people, or only about 0.9 until 1.2% with the total populations of the Ukraine. With this, the existence of these Muslim republics in the Russia, also there's Chechnya and so on. OIC seems to be in the two positions. On the one hand, they have condemned the war, and on the other hand, the OIC had diplomatic relations with Russia as the country that carry out an invasions of the Ukraine. Next, Bra. So from the previous descriptions, it is become interesting to be seen that whether the large number of Muslim communities in Russia or the historical that happened between OIC and Russia that occur, was the cause of the OIC not acting much in the positioning themselves on this case. This fact, it is important because in doing so, religion and its adherents in both countries are not explicitly and directly involved in the destructions of humanity and civilization due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. In that context, it is necessary to look at the religious demographics of the two countries. Looking at Islam and Muslim on the territory of Russia today, it is inevitable the involvement of Muslim community to become soldiers or Muslim combat volunteers in the military. Russian Muslim could not have shrink the war destructions of Ukraine because it became the integral part with the political entity since the time of Tsar Muscovy and the Union of Soviet or USSR, and until right now the Putin's era. In this issue, leadership religions are not involved. They can prevent the inventions of Russia, and in this time also cannot play a role in the stopping the war and creating a peace.
And then is this the last page?
The three, yes, this is the last presentation, the last part. And then as we can see that the OIC in the number of the resolutions on Muslim communities and minorities in non-OIC member state that they explain that this organization is not only concerned with its member state, but countries that are not its members also receive attention from the OIC. The Russian Ukraine attack itself is not related to the religions or religious people. The war was entirely due to the political conflict and historical long-standing contention, as what my friend said. Therefore, it is important for the OIC to put big attention also regarding toward Russian and Ukraine war using their political power. Because after all, this conflict can continue. The issue of human rights that does not rule out of the possibility of the Muslim communities in both countries are equally effective. If the OIC does work and move according to the charter and the goal it aspires to support world peace and oppose colonialization, then OIC will not stand idly by in handle this. Next, the conclusions. From the various impact caused the Russian-Ukraine war, it is necessary to resolve the conflict to the two countries. The OIC, as one of the international organizations with the base of Islamic countries, needs to maximize their role as the initiator, facilitator, and mediator as an effort to bring about the ceasefire and the end to end the conflict. Because if the war continues, it will have a great consequence for the world. The current world crisis with the rising price of oil, gas, wheat, and so on is already suffering so many countries in the world, especially the Muslim
time
world
is up, please.
Okay, that's the presentations from our team. Thank you very much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much. Yeah, because there is another speakers that we have also to speak. So let's manage our time better. Well,
okay,
I would like to invite the next speaker to speak on the paper. The title is the analysis of the mainstream media perspective on European countries' policies in receiving Syrian and Ukrainian refugees. Please, the themes from the paper. Anyone here? Yanuar from the team? Rizqullah, and Tatuz. So seems that no one is not yet here. Okay.
Hello, Professor. We're here. Just I'm
Yeah.
just waiting for my partner.
Okay. You're still waiting for your team, yeah?
Mr. Rifqi, Dr. Rifqi, can you hear my voice?
Yes, 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 I can hear. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll be the one that's sharing the screen. Can I share the screen?
Yeah, keep the size on for 15 minutes, yeah?
Okay. Is it showing right now?
Yeah, please.
All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rifqi and Dr. Ridwan from the University of International Islam Indonesia. My name is Dr. Ramadan Yanuar, and my friend here, my colleague is Mr. Tatuz, will be presenting the analysis of my intermedia perspective on European countries, policies in receiving Syrian and Ukrainian refugees. Unfortunately, my other colleague, Shafiq Rizqullah, cannot be with us together today, so it's just going to be the two of us. This is our profile in short. I'm a Turkish YTB scholarship awardee. Now I'm studying in Mersin University journalism department. My interest in migration studies, diaspora studies, etc. My friend here, Masoud, is a Syrian that living in Turkey. Now is a Turkish national. His interest in Syrian politics and Syrian revolutions. He's working with the Syrian opposition in Turkey, and now are an intern in anti-Assad regime television, Syria TV. And my last colleague is Shafiq Rizqullah. He's a master's student in Ankara University. He's an international relations majoring. Now we also master degree students in UGM, Gadjah Mada in Indonesia from long distance learning. So this is the table of contents. First, I'm going to tell you the research introductions and go to the methodology and the findings, and finally the discussions. The last two will be delivered by my colleague, Masoud. I'm going to deliver the research, the introduction and the methodology. So here's the first one. Our title, as I mentioned before, is about analysis in media perspective. How do European countries are receiving the refugees? Lately, the Syrian crisis and the Ukrainian one first in the 2015 and lately now in the 2022. Europe, as we know, is a key for a new life and safe haven for refugees. Mainly, it started not only in the 2015, long before, even Turkey in the 60s are sending migrations toward Western Europe as workers in Germany, most of them. And we here are trying to defining the refugees in Europe. What do Europe see refugees? What do they differ in international definitions? And war and conflict, we admit that that the violence also are the cause relations of migration crisis, as we see here in Syrian and Ukrainian refugee crisis, respectively in 2013 and 2082. And through this paper, we're trying to see European countries' policies through the news media lens and how they receive these policies. Do the media agree with it, happy with it, critical with it, etc. This is the definitions as we see from European Union. The main difference is the directive of 2011. If the refugees are somewhat containing threats or somewhat threatful to the European societies, they can be stripped off from the refugee context. This is the main difference of the refugees in Europe. But most of all, it's the well-founded fear of persecutions, the reason of race, religion, nationality, political opinions, or membership of particular social group. and they are either stateless or they are unwilling to go back to their country because they afraid of the persecution and etc. This is the definition of refugees in Europe that we are quoting in our paper. The main difference I already mentioned, and this is our statement of problems. The continuations. The research regarding the comparison of media mainstream in framing the issues of refugees in Europe is still rare, especially in analyzing the news report on the country's policies, let alone comparing the refugee crisis in Europe. There's none whatsoever analysis in news report that based on its country's policies. So I'm pretty sure we are the first one to do this paper or this research, and the late research, the latest one, is still concerned with what the European Union did toward the refugees, and still does not consider how the media's power in helping lift the issues of the refugees, or even making the refugees. So there's a lot of roles that media plays in the refugee context, and this is one of the expert in migration crisis in Turkey, Professor Dr. Murat Erdogan, that I'd like to quote. Europe pays billions of dollars for Turkey to withholding the Syrian refugees in their bay. We could pay double the number, but the EU won't take them. Why? It's not solely because of financial price. There's also the price of security, cultural price, and demographical price, etc. There are too much for them. This explains what we are trying to do. Basically, as we know, as you might well know, Europeans are paying billions of dollars to Turkey for withholding the Syrian refugees. This is why Professor Dr. Muhammad Erdogan explained why they won't take the refugees, and we will explain it later further toward our findings. And we also aim, as our objectives here, to show the European countries and its mainstream media the complexities and the contradictions on how they perceive the refugees. This is one of main objectives of our paper here. And this is our scope and limitations in the study. To find the difference in news reporting of Syrian refugees and Ukrainian refugee policies in Europe, we choose the mainstream media to best represent each interest of the region. And we know how complex, as we know, Europe is not a single culture. There's a lot of countries over there. There's a lot of differing opinions. That's why we chose mainstream media as the representations of each country and region. Consisted from English using state affiliated or supported mainstream media such as Deutsche Welle in Germany, BBC in UK, and from independent and private ones such as Daily Mail, The Guardian in UK, and Euronews in Europe as in general. And we use CDA, a critical discourse analysis from Thion van Dijk. There's no complete corpus analysis because it's basically undoable in CDA. We are narrowed down to its macro approach in our method of analysis, which relies on thematic analysis, the situation, the surrounding of the news, how do they conclude the news and its commentary, etc. This is the methodology and the way we gathering the data and its method of analysis. So there's 3 steps. The news gathering one, we filter according to the timetable when the refugee crisis reaching its influx and other categories. And analysis, using critical discourse analysis, we delve deeper into the relations between text and context of the news. And lastly, we compare the CDA analysis, the result of the Syrians and the Ukrainian one. First, we analyze the Syrian one, and then we compare it together with the Ukrainian one, and again later in the discussions. So this is our way to gather the data. There's 31 news from biggest 5 mainstream news media in Europe, including UK, which highlighted, touched, or reported on European countries' policies, are chosen as sample. I mentioned before, Euronews, Deutsche Welle in Europe context, and in UK, the BBC and Guardian and the Daily Mail, because at the time, UK still not going through the Brexit happening only after they received the Syrian refugees. All news articles are chosen according to their release dates, the peak influx of each Syrian and Ukrainian refugee crisis. All news contain the keywords like Syrian refugee crisis, Syrian refugees, Syrian civil war, European refugee crisis, Ukrainian refugee crisis, Ukrainian refugees, and Ukrainian war. This is basically the three methods and three ways we use the Theon Van Dijk's to detect that ideology, racism, and prejudice in journalistic works, and microanalysis, the thematic approach centered around the news stories. And this is the news stories that consisted from the commentaries, from the verbal reactions and the situation, I mean the context. And this is the analysis method we use. Critical discourse analysis is frequently used in the study of ideologies-based discourses, how it shaped and created the polarization between the representation of us and them, how they are good, we are bad, and created the polarization between the two. Overall, its strategy of positive self-representation and negative other representations or otherness that emphasize one side and de-emphasize the other side. Mostly it used in European press studies of in researching its racism and prejudices. Theon Van Dijk, using qualitative and quantitative analysis techniques in his studies, tried to prove how influential the journalists who are considered the intellectual segment of the society. And we here choose the macro-structural approach in analysis. This is our findings. My colleague, Masood here, will deliver the rest. Masood, time is yours.
Hello, everyone.
5 minutes, yeah.
All right. So in our findings, we decided to split up their coverage of the media coverage of Syrian refugees, its implications, and the Ukrainian refugees and its implications on Europe, or how European countries, society reacted. So first we got Euronews. Euronews, when covering the Syrian refugee crisis, was mostly critical of Eastern European and Baltic states, of their treatment towards the coming refugees. They used a very liberal humanitarian approach to their coverage. Deutsche Welle is a state-run German news TV channel, so their focus was on German policies, German reactions to the refugee crisis, how Germany handled it. They were promoting the German policy of quota proposed by the Germans, by the German government, a set of numbers, a number of refugees that each EU country had to host. Also was critical of Eastern European countries for refusing the said quota. The Guardian was very critical of the UK government during the Syrian refugee crisis. They viewed the 20,000 number, the 20,000 refugee number that the UK government set was highly inadequate. They said that the UK government was inadequate, immoral, and supported a more German approach to the crisis. The Daily Mail is known for their right-wing radical views, so mostly they were interviewing heads of state from Eastern Europe, countries that were under pressure from the refugee crisis, to promote an anti-refugee rhetoric. The BBC, also another state-run news outlet, so they were very neutral in their tone, but they had a bias towards the British government. They made the British government look a better image than what their policies were. Next slide, please. The same media outlets, when they were reporting on the Ukrainian refugee crisis, Euronews was consistent. They still approached it with a very humanitarian tone, very liberal. It was they highlighted the background of the refugee crisis, the events that led up to it. Deutsche Welle, again, they also, like the last refugee crisis, they highlighted German policies but this time they were more critical. They gave voice to Die Linke, the leftist party of Germany, when they criticized the government for their double standards, basically treating Ukrainian refugees as first-class refugees, while Syrian and Middle Eastern refugees were more second-class. The Guardian, again, criticized the UK government, Boris Johnson's government this time, for their long bureaucratic process to get Ukrainian refugees into the country. The very big contrast here we see is the Daily Mail. Same as Germany, the switch of positions for the right wing from AfD in Germany and people that views aligned with the Daily Mail. They were more pro-refugees, more welcoming, demanding more numbers of refugees be taken in. The BBC this time was more critical of the British government, again highlighting the long bureaucratic process, lack of visa offices in countries such as France and Belgium. Next slide. Here in the discussions, we made a summary of our findings, the conclusion basically. Double standard treatment of refugees by EU countries. The big difference we see it as a shift from right-wing politicians. This stems from a prejudice against people from Muslim majority countries. After 9/11, Arabs are still perceived as potential terrorists, a potential danger to the Western way of life, which was very disappointing to see when it comes from EU countries. The European Union is a organization that prides itself on non-discrimination, justice, solidarity, equality, and to see them allowing people to risk their lives, thousands of people drowned, people got shot trying to cross borders, and to see an organization such as the EU to allow such thing to persist solely on prejudice, stereotypes was very unfortunate to see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's very interesting topics to discuss later on. And the next, I would like to invite the next speaker on the impact of the imperially inspired post 9/11 US foreign policy on the rise of the ISIS in Iraq by Nouha Khelfa. Nouha, time is yours, please.
Thank you, Pa. Thank you, Pa Rifqi. Thank you for the speakers and the participants. My name is Nouha. I'm from Algeria. I'm master's students at IIIU. I'll be presenting about the impact of the imperially inspired post 9/11 US foreign policy on the rise of the Islamic State in Iraq. I'd like to start my presentation with a quote by Maurice. The Bush Doctrine is a significant shift in policy after the attacks of 9/11, which allowed for the securitization of religious terrorism and a state of exception in which the United States has broken international law and violated human rights through extraordinary measures. After the implementation of the war on terror policies, Iraq has had the biggest increase in terrorism from 2002 until 2011. Pakistan had the second largest increase in terrorism, seeing a large increase in explosive attacks, especially from 2007 to 2009. Western Europe suffered 19 times more deaths from terrorist incidents between 2002 and 2011. The Middle East and North Africa, along with the Asian Pacific region, also witnessed increase in the number of terrorist fatalities. This period that followed the beginning of the war on terror also coincides with the emergence of a terrorist group in northern Iraq that would later become the largest and the richest global terrorist organization, the Islamic State.
Excuse me, Nouha, do you have another page, or the screen is not moving? It's you only you are moving.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, that's only. Yeah, we only got the first page that you give to us. No, that would be. I think you can use using that screen and click the. Yeah, from using that. Let's move into your current what you speak, so we can manage our time.
Is it moving?
Yes, okay, you can move quickly. This
leads me to ask the question, to what extent has the post 9/11 US foreign policy reinforced the rise of the transformation of the Islamic State from a mutant quasi-state of Al-Qaeda in Iraq into an independent terrorist organization? My assumption is that the US post 9/11 foreign policies, precisely the war on terror, directly led to the rise of the Islamic State in Iraq. My second assumption is that the war on terror, precisely the period of the Bush presidency, is the continuity of the historical imperial behavior or the manifest destiny that inspires the US foreign policy.
Sorry, I don't think that your slide is appearing our screen. You know, so just use the big slide with another smaller one, so you can keep seeing. Just keep using this one. So you click the right side. You don't have to. You don't have to make it into full screen.
Okay.
Okay. So we can move like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
To test my hypothesis, I use process tracing of the rise of the Islamic State in Iraq. The most important component of the success of the Islamic State is its economic structure and recruitment strategy that is based or that is reinforced by the sectarianism that rose after the de-Baathification program implemented after the invasion of Iraq. The invasion of Iraq was mainly because of claims linking the Ba'ath regime with the terrorist network in northern Iraq led by Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. Abu Musab al-Zarqawi reaches Iraq after the geographical dispersion of jihadis after the invasion of Afghanistan. I would link all of this to the imperial character of the US foreign policy. The Islamic State's economic structure is mostly based on the hydrocarbon economy. George explained that money, not ideology, was the primary motivation for joining Al-Qaeda in Iraq. ISIS' major economic concern is the hydrocarbon sector. In 2015 alone, the estimated daily revenue from oil is $1.5 million. IS sells oil at significantly reduced prices to a variety of traders or intermediaries in domestic markets in Iraq and Syria, including adversaries such as the Kurds in Iraq, the Assad regime in Syria, and Turkish agents who then transport the oil to legitimate markets. The strength of the organization stems from the fact that its fighters are Iraqis, local who are familiar with the region and its familial clan-based communitarian or sectarian networks. The Islamic State in Iraq exploited former officials from the Ba'ath regime who were excluded to the US de-Ba'athification program. The Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated in April 2018 that some high-ranking former Ba'ath party members are on the list of most wanted ISIL members. Pavel defines Ba'athification that anyone who had become a member of Saddam's oppressive political party was henceforth banned from participation in Iraqi political or public office. In reality, this definition is pretty simplistic because many former politicians, administrators, and academics who could be considered close allies to Saddam were removed from their jobs as a result of this program. By 2004, there were two insurgencies. One is Sunni insurgency in central part of the country, and the other one is Shia, guided by Muqtada Sadr, a radical Shiite cleric. Fallujah served as a safe haven for former Ba'athists during the war, because its population is dominated by Sunni Muslims. It was the site of two of the Iraq war's most fierce engagements. Colonel Hams explains that a couple 100,000 people who are armed and desperate, they would join the insurgency. Apart from possessing master destruction weaponry, the pretext behind the invasion is the claim that Saddam's regime supports the terrorists. However, a series of secret intelligence reports proved there was never any ties with Hussein and Al-Qaeda. For example, the 2002 US Defense Intelligence Agency proved that there was no ties between Hussein and the terrorists. Nevertheless, Paul accused Hussein of hosting Az-Zarqawi in UN Security Council despite the CIA investigation. According to some testimony, Az-Zarqawi went to Afghanistan in 1999, and Al-Qaeda central tops commanders did not meet with him and kept distance from young upstart. In fact, he was a man who wanted things to be done quickly, and he also chose unqualified people for missions. He himself was an uneducated man with limited knowledge of classical Arabic, and he needed always help to read and understand the scripture. Bonfoy explains that Az-Zarqawi is then an obsession of the occupation forces. In May 1999, Az-Zarqawi departed his homeland in Jordan to join the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. Then he founded his training camp that was mainly for living a lifestyle similar to Prophet Muhammad. But following the US invasion of Afghanistan, the jihadis had to leave Afghanistan and spread around the Middle East. Az-Zarqawi's group was split into two subgroups. One headed to Turkey, and the other one to northern Iraq. The first part went to Turkey, and it did not develop into any worrying jihadi network given the unsuitable conditions of security. The other one in Iraq found a hospitable environment, especially after the 2003 occupation, and it flourished into the Islamic State. George Bush claimed that the war on terror was driven by a mission from God to invade Afghanistan and Iraq and to fight the terrorists. This discourse is not new. It could be traced back to the discourse used to justify the extermination of Native Americans by early colonists to expand west. Youngberg explains that the strategies of justification deployed today and narrated in the United States National Security Strategy of 2002, otherwise known as the Bush Doctrine, as the inheritance of a tradition of manifest destiny that is also narrated in Twain's novel. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. This is also another interesting topic to discuss and to receive that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I think in this sessions we do not have the first speakers for the dynamic of balance of power in Indo-Pacific. I heard that the paper wasn't submitted, so I think we can continue with discussing these 3 papers that we have presented. And then I would like to give some little notes on from your papers and presentations. First of all, with regard to the implications of Russia-Ukraine war toward the OIC, I think there is an interesting parallel, if I might, to make connections between the first presentations and the second presentations, especially with the questions of, in one side is why OIC is silence toward the war in Ukraine, while for the second speakers is basically we can see why the mainstream media they have different attentions on the issues of refugee, so there are some little parallel on that issues, but I would also like to highlight for the first one on the OIC, especially what is actually the main argument. So OIC is not so pay attention on the issues of Ukraine war. Is there any kind of situation in which actually the issues is not the lacking of attention of OIC toward Ukraine war? Is it also related to actually the OIC or changing of the structure of relations between OIC with Russia and also OIC with United States, and United States and the West? What I mean is that maybe there are some little level of shifting that OIC becoming closer to Russia. That's for the issues of with the first presentation. On the second issue regarding the presentation of the issues of mainstream media, the MSM generally we call it. It is interesting study and to looking at, and you already define the issues of mainstream media by looking at of course the CDA by Van Dijk as well as on the SMS itself. But actually there are some questions on who are actually the mainstream media in these issues of war in Ukraine. Is there any alternative of mainstream media? Because if mainstream media also being seen as an established media which have a strong impact strong impact is usually referred to main media that we refer it into as a main sources, and why you only focus on the mainstream media that is available in Western Europe, while there is also another mainstream media in Russia, why the mainstream media from Russia not being included in this matter? Of course I understand that Russia is one of the invader for the Russia for the Ukraine and the situation, so I think we need more slightly elaboration on whose mainstream media, because we need to be careful on avoiding the possibilities of bias, in deciding on the mainstream media. And the other issues is, I think you already putting at some of the view and the cases of that. And for Nouha, for the last presentations, I would like to, you raise very important point on the process tracing. It's like political forensic on how the such process of like the growing of terrorist group happening in the region. But I think you also need to pay attention on the issues of power relations actually between actors in that area with the countries like United States in this case with regard to the issues of growing terrorism. And also you need also, I think, to touch on the issues how actually the global operations or international operations to combat the terrorism, which is IS in Middle East, because there are two perspectives: how the U.S. Doing operation for the ISIS, as well as how the Russia is operating for the ISIS. So I think that would be interesting for you to also to see that kind of issues. Okay, so that's from my side, and I will put some of the written notes for you via the organizer for the purpose of this paper. Thank you very much for that. And before I invite to the public, to the audience, I would like to, if there is any response from the speakers to what I already give some little notes. Any response from the first paper? Or from the second one? Or from the last? If there is no response, I would like to invite the participants, from this section. So anyone from the participant would like to raise the questions, and would be good for us to have discussion from and putting ideas from all of you, from the participant. Please, anyone identify. Anyone from the floor, from the audience, would like to make a questions to whether it is to speakers one or the second or the third? Hello? So no one is asking the questions? Oh yeah, Sabur.
Yes, yeah. Thank you very much. Well, my question goes to Nouha, since she's talking about the American, the Al-Qaeda and other stuff. She just tackled a little bit about Pakistan, and as I know that Pakistan has played a very critical role during 2001 when America invaded Afghanistan and Iraq. So what was the position of Pakistan in providing safe haven for Al-Qaeda and the Taliban? Because there is a book called the Afghanistan Paper, and it is written by international journalist called Craig Whitlock. He says on his book that in 2001, when America toppled the Taliban and Pakistan came to the US or to the American force, said that there is around 1,300 Al-Qaeda in the north of Afghanistan, allow us to carry them in Pakistan, and America allowed them to carry them in Pakistan and provide them a safe haven. So, like, what was the real motivation? America said that we are going to topple Al-Qaeda, and in another hand, they allowed Pakistan to provide a safe haven for them through Pakistan. Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you, Sabur. Please go directly to Nouha, the speaker number 3, to respond.
Okay, thanks, Sabur. I mentioned Pakistan in the beginning to say statistics about the rise of terrorism in the world after the war on terror started, to link it with the fact that after the invasion of Iraq, terrorism increased, which is the opposite intentional effects of the war on terror. I didn't talk about Pakistan in my research because I only focused on the rise of ISIS, which was mainly in Iraq. And through the use of process tracing, I linked everything to the US policies, foreign policies in Iraq and Afghanistan, and how they led to the rise of, or to the transformation of Al-Qaeda in Iraq into a more complex organization, which is the Islamic State. Thank you.
Thank you, Nouha. Any other questions from the floor, from the participants? Well, if there is no additional questions, I would like each of you, 3 of the paper speakers, to make some short comments, your final say for this session. Please, start from Mr. Tafar Ramadani, or Masood, so make some comment from before we close,
Thank you very much, Dr. Rifqi. We are appreciating for your comments on our paper, and we do agree. Of course, we need to be careful in deciding who is the mainstream. We didn't put our argument which exposed our shortcoming, but actually we did research it first, like who's the most consumed media, and that's what we are used. We use websites like Visual Capitalist and others as our sources in choosing this media. Like, for example, UK first 3 are the Guardian, BBC, and Daily Mail. They are the mainstream media because they are the the major consumed media in the region, in the country. And I think, respectively, why not the Russians? It's because it has little to no effect in the region in choosing the policies. The most important one is the one that echoes with the region well. I think it's the regional media, such as your news and Deutsche Welle, because most of them, like BBC and Deutsche Welle, are state-affiliated mainstream media. They are being consumed by the people in the region. That's why we are choosing them. And thank you very much. I think that's we can say for our short response. We can add later if there's any more responses from you, Dr. Rifqi, or any other academician here. Thank you very much for the enriching suggestions.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, any comments, response from the paper one, Mr. Mohammad Ibrahim or Mohammad Aqshadigrama, please.
Thank you, Mr. Rifqi Muna, for the time. First of all, we would like to say sorry about our technical issue that on the first paper presented. And also thank you for the advice and the comment for our paper. We would like to fix our paper for a better results in the near future. And also, Aqsa, would you like to say something?
Maybe I would like to say about short about our paper is that OIC actually as the second largest organizations in the world after the UN, actually they should use their political power beside their to resolve this conflict between Russia and Ukraine, because we know that there are so many countries that affected, especially for the Muslims world or Muslim community. And also the OIC should focus on what they propose, that is to achieve the peace and avoid the colonializations, and they should focus on that point beside their right now their more seems like they're more focusing on the political sides, like they're more abstention. So in here that the OIC should have a principle to stand, put their standing to whether they're put their positions that is to against any conflict that happen and in the world. So they should use their political power to reduce this the conflict as the largest organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. So it seems that OIC are much preoccupied to the internal matters of the might be the organizations or home countries rather than for the organization itself. And some of related question is also maybe on the relevance of the OIC. That would be also one aspect that that we can, or you can make it, can raise the questions on whether the OIC having relevance on this matters. I think that's my view, you know. So yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir.
And from Nouha, anything would like to say something?
Yes, Pa. Thank you for your comments. I try to use them to enhance my paper. I think I should have talked about the role of international cooperation in fighting terrorism. But concerning the role of Russia, I think it matters more after the Syrian civil war. But my paper focused about the period before that, only Iraq, and the period before the Syrian civil war. I try to enhance my paper. Thank you.
Okay, that would be, thank you very much. Well, I think since there is no more asking, I think we can have session photos together, you know, for the groups. So please, for anyone who still closing, let's open your Zoom, please, so we can get the picture of your face. If you still in, okay, yeah. And anyone taking the picture for this, from the administration? Hello?
Yeah, Pak.
Okay, so please take the picture. When say finish, you say finish, so we can close the session.
Okay. In 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Again. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much. So this session has been one of the productive sessions. The only problem was the organizing time in the beginning, you know. So but all in all, in terms of the topics that we are discussed is this is an interesting topic, and also each of the topic have relevance, you know, because generally when we say interesting, it's different with relevant. It could be interesting but not relevant. But for this topic, I would like to say that it is interesting but also having relevance for the study. And what we need is just to have some little more robust analysis, so they would be hopefully it could be published for this first editions for the journal, you know. And of course it will take time, but for sure, thank you very much for your participation and for writing the papers and the ideas. And I think we can continue our discussions and our collaborations in the future. Again, thank you very much. Take care, look after the health, you know, your health, and yeah, just before I'm closing, anyone want to say something? EF, no, okay. Well, so thanks very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you.